Welcome back to the deep end. We're doing something that feels a little different today, a little more charged.
It's a heavy topic.
It is. Usually, when we do these deep dives, we're looking at a stack of articles, maybe a tech review, something on urban planning, something you can hold at a distance.
Right. We synthesize. That's the job, to map out the landscape for you.
We synthesize. But today, I feel less like a synthesizer and more like, I don't know, someone holding wire cutters over a ticking package.
That is a very dramatic opening.
It feels dramatic. I've got this stack of notes in front of me from a source called Divine Decree, The Quranic Protection of Innocence by J.R. Ahmed. And honestly, reading through it didn't feel like I was just reading a theological text.
Yeah.
It felt like I was reading a blueprint for bomb defusal.
I don't think that's hyperbole, actually. Not considering the state of the world, and especially not considering the subject matter itself.
It's just the air in the room feels heavy even talking about it. Because we aren't just discussing rules or abstract ideas. We are talking about life and death.
We are. The author calls it the calculus of mercy.
The calculus of mercy. It's this attempt to solve a problem that has been with us, with our entire species, since the very beginning.
The source material refers to it as the primal sickness.
Yeah, let's start there. Because before we can even get to the proposed solution, we have to understand the diagnosis. The notes open with this framing, that acts of terrorism, killing innocents, targeting women and children.
Yeah.
We tend to see these as modern problems, right?
Absolutely. You see it on the news, you get the alert on your phone, and the immediate thought is, what has gone wrong with the world now?
Exactly. But the text argues this isn't some modern glitch in the system.
It's an ancient bug, a recurring one. It suggests this sickness has been in every land, in every single era, since the moment Cain killed Abel.
That's the archetype, isn't it? The brother killing the brother, the primal act of violence. And the source makes the case that everything we're seeing today, the geopolitical conflicts, the insurgencies, the drone strikes, the suicide vests, it's all just an echo of that first murder.
It's the human tendency to let rage completely override reason. And the mission of this specific deep dive, the whole point of the text we're analyzing, is to see if there's a cure.
And it sets up this collision. On one side, you've got what the author calls the empiricist.
The historian. The person looking at the messy, on-the-ground reality.
Right, and the empiricist looks at history and just sees friction, contradiction, war.
And on the other side, you have the rationalist, the one looking for the sovereign intelligence, the architectural framework that's supposed to hold all that chaos back.
And I have to admit, when I started this, I was fully in the empiricist camp. I came into this stack of notes expecting, I don't know, apologetics maybe. A nice clean list of do's and don'ts.
But that's not where it starts.
Not at all. It starts with the friction. It starts right in the middle of the confusion.
You're talking about the conflicting narratives in the historical record.
I am. And this is where I really want to slow down, because this part threw me for a loop. The author, J.R. Ahmed, he doesn't hide the mess. He puts it right on page 1. He calls it the conflict between the zeal of ignorance and the divine decree. He presents this stack of Hadith, and for anyone who doesn't know, these are the historical reports of the Prophet's life. And he basically shows us that if you only look at history, if you just look at what happened on the ground, you can find a justification for almost anything.
And that's the empiricist's dilemma. History is just data, and data without a filter, without a framework, is just noise.
So let's sit with the noise for a minute, because to really get the solution, you have to feel the discomfort of the problem. The notes cite Bukhari. Now, in this tradition, Bukhari is the gold standard, right?
Correct. For the vast majority of Sunni Muslims, after the Quran, Sahih Bukhari is considered the most authentic historical source.
So right there in Volume 4, Book 52, Hadith number 256, there's this scenario. It's dark. It's a night raid. The Prophet is at a place called Al-Abwa, or maybe Wadan. The narrator admits he's a bit fuzzy on the exact location, and he's asked a question. And it's a question soldiers have been asking for thousands of years.
Is it permissible to attack the enemy at night?
Yeah. And you have to put yourself there. The context is everything.
This is 7th century warfare. No night vision goggles, no precision-guided munitions. If you attack a camp at night, you're attacking almost blind.
Exactly. You can't tell the soldier for the civilian. You might hit women. You might hit children. The question itself implies that risk. They're asking, is this kind of collateral damage okay?
Yeah, and the reply.
And the reply, recorded in this specific historical report, it was chilling to read. It says, the Prophet replied, they are from them.
They are from them.
3 words. That's it. Meaning the women and children are, well, they're part of the pagans. They belong to the enemy tribe. So lineage, proximity, association, it all just blurs together.
It is a phrase that has been weaponized for centuries.
No question.
If you accept that data point in isolation, if you're an empiricist just grabbing the first fact you see, you have a theological license for collateral damage.
Right.
You have the argument that because someone is near an enemy or related to an enemy, their immunity is just gone.
It sounds so much like modern warfare logic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We hear this today. Oh, we hit a school, but there was a high-value target there, so it's the same logic. They are from them.
Guilt by association.
Yeah, and if I'd stopped reading right there, I would have thought, okay, so this is a religion that justifies killing civilians. Case closed.
But you didn't stop there.
No, and this is why my head was spinning. You just turned the page. Literally, the very next number in the index. Hadith 257 and 258. The narrations of Abdullah and Ibn Umar.
And what do those reports say?
It's a completely different story. It's whiplash. In these reports, they find a woman killed during one of the battles. And the reaction isn't, oh, well, she was from them.
No.
The reaction is horror. It says the prophet disapproved of the killing. The next one's even stronger. It says he forbade the killing of women and children.
So you have a direct binary conflict in the historical record. Data point A says they are from them, implying permission.
Right.
Data point B says forbidden, implying an absolute prohibition.
And that's the frustration. The source calls this the pick and choose mentality. If you're an angry young man looking for justification to do something terrible, you circle data point A in red ink, you tattoo they are from them on your arm, and you completely ignore data point B.
And if you're a pacifist, you do the exact opposite.
Yeah. It feels like the history is just this buffet where you can pick the plate that suits your appetite for that day.
Which is exactly why the source material argues that you cannot rely solely on the empirical friction of historical reports to solve a moral crisis. History is a record of what happened, or maybe what people thought happened.
Or what a narrator remembered 20 years after the fact.
Exactly. It's not necessarily the standard. It's the fog of war.
It's the fog of war recorded by human beings, with all our biases and flawed memories.
And to find the real calculus of mercy, the author argues we have to leave the muddy waters of history, the empiricist's domain, and ascend to the sovereign intelligence of the foundational text itself.
So we have to move from the historian to the rationalist.
We have to. The argument is that the history is the what, but the Quran is the why. It's the rule.
So the answer isn't in some specific tactical ruling about a night raid in 630 AD?
No. It's found in a core theorem, a kind of mathematical equation for the value of human life that is meant to override everything else.
This is where we get to the divine decree, verse 5, verse 32.
The eternal moral ordinance.
Let's actually read it, because the author says this is the antidote to that primal sickness, the Cain and Abel violence we started with. We decreed to the children of Israel that whoever kills a human being, unless it be for murder or bloody crimes on the earth, it would be as if he killed all mankind.
And then the inverse. And whoever saves the life of one human being, it would be as if he saved the life of all mankind.
Okay, let's just slow down and really look at the math there, because that's a massive, massive scalar. It takes one single biological event, the stopping of one heart, and equates it to the extinction of the entire species.
As if he killed all mankind.
It changes the unit of measurement. Usually when we talk about a tragedy, we measure it in numbers. We say this was a terrible attack because 50 people died, or this was a minor incident, only one person was killed.
We quantify suffering. We create a hierarchy of grief based on volume.
We do. But this theorem says 1 equals infinity. It completely rejects that hierarchy.
And there's a deep reason for that.
I mean, I get it. Poetically, it's beautiful. But rationally, why? Why does one life equal all of humanity?
Because it removes the motive from the equation. This is the critical insight from the source notes. It says, whatever motives a murderer has for doing so is utterly rejected. Think about it. When someone kills an innocent person, a terrorist, a soldier in a war crime, a common murderer, why do they do it?
They always have a reason, right? A grievance. I'm doing this for the cause. I'm doing this for revenge. I'm doing this to send a message.
Exactly. They believe their message or their cause is worth more than that individual life. They're performing a kind of calculus where their political goal is heavier than the victim's heartbeat.
We're weighing the life against the cause.
And this verse, 5.32, it destroys that scale, it says.
Yeah.
It does not matter why you did it. It doesn't matter if you think you're saving the world or avenging your people. If you kill one innocent person, you have, in effect, killed humanity.
Wow.
You've destroyed the concept of life itself. You've attacked the very sanctity that holds the species together.
So it's an absolute value. There's no variable you can add for, but I was really angry, or, but they started it.
Precisely. It treats every human life not as a statistic, but as a unique universe. If you destroy a universe, the math of how many you destroyed becomes irrelevant. You've already committed the ultimate crime.
And the inverse. Whoever saves one life, it is as if he saved all mankind. That puts a huge responsibility on the individual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It means you aren't just responsible for your own skin, you're a guardian of the species.
It suggests that preservation is the default setting of the believer. The primal sickness is the urge to destroy. The divine decree is the command to preserve.
And here's the friction coming back.
Yeah.
The verse has an exception clause.
It does.
Unless it be for murder or bloody crimes on the earth.
Right. So the sanctity of life is absolute, except in the case of justice. But this is where it gets really tricky. And this is where extremists exploit the ambiguity. Who defines justice?
Right. Who decides what a bloody crime is? If I decide my neighbor committed a bloody crime by playing his music too loud, can I execute him?
That's the vigilante logic. I am the law.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what the source material is trying to dismantle. This is where the text transitions from a moral theorem into what we could call architectural justice.
This was the part of the notes that genuinely surprised me. Because when you hear a phrase like bloody crimes on earth, or the Arabic term the source uses, fasad, you think of, I don't know, general bad behavior.
Being a nuisance.
Yeah, being a nuisance. But the expert analysis in these notes is so specific about what fasad means in a legal sense. It's not just being bad.
No, not at all. Fasad is defined as spreading corruption, creating disorder, or waging war against the structural integrity of society itself.
Oh, anarchy.
Yes. And the source links this directly to the next verse, 5.33, which talks about those who wage war against God and his messenger.
Okay, let's stop there. Wage war against God. I've heard that phrase used by extremists all the time. They say, the West is waging war against God, or this secular government is waging war against God. It sounds like a theological crime. Like, if I don't pray 5 times a day, am I waging war against God?
That's the common misconception, and it's a dangerous one. The source is adamant about this distinction. It asks a very logical, almost Socratic question. Can a human being physically fight God?
No, of course not. You can't punch the sky and hurt God.
Right. And can you physically fight the messenger? Well, a prophet was a mortal man who died in the 7th century, so you can't fight him either.
So what does the phrase even mean? If you can't literally fight God or the prophet, what are you fighting?
The source argues that God and his messenger, in this specific legal context, is a term that denotes the central authority, the state, the law itself.
Oh, that is a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
So waging war against God is actually treason, sedition.
It's rebellion against the lawfully constituted authority. It's an attempt to break the state's monopoly on violence. The source notes say very clearly, no one would take the law in own hand.
Okay, let's play this out. The terrorist, the vigilante, the person who straps on a bomb and walks into a marketplace. He claims he's a soldier of God. He says he's fighting for God.
But according to this legal definition, he's doing the exact opposite. By acting outside the law, by taking the power of life and death into his own hands, he is the one waging war against God.
Because he's creating fasad. He's an agent of disorder.
He is the definition of disorder. That turns the entire extremist narrative on its head. The self-proclaimed holy warrior isn't a warrior at all. He's a criminal, a rebel.
Wow.
And because fasad, this spreading of anarchy, is considered such a profound threat to the species. I mean, remember, saving one life is saving all mankind, so destroying social order is like destroying all mankind. The punishment listed in verse 5.33 is severe.
It's brutal. Let's not sugarcoat it. The verse mentions execution, crucifixion, severing of the hands and feet, banishment. Reading that as a modern person, you recoil. It sounds medieval?
It's visceral language, no doubt. But we have to look at the architectural function here. The source interprets severing hands and feet, not just literally, but as cutting off their ability to create fasad. It's about total incapacitation of the threat, and banishment is interpreted as life imprisonment or exile.
So it's removing the cancer from the body politic.
It is. It's about removing the threat to the collective safety. But the most critical takeaway for you listening, the thing that matters most in this entire calculus, is who gets to administer that punishment?
The state.
Only the court of law. The source explicitly states, only a court of law will make decisions. This destroys the entire argument of the vigilante. If you carry out the punishment yourself, even if the person you killed was guilty, you become the criminal.
You have no standing.
None. You broke the monopoly on violence. You tried to fix disorder by creating more disorder.
It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline.
Precisely. And in a legal system based on this sovereign intelligence, order is paramount. You simply cannot have a million different people deciding for themselves who deserves to die. That is the definition of facade. That is the primal sickness running wild.
Okay, so if we map this out, we have the core theorem, don't kill innocents. We have the definition of the ultimate crime, facade or rebellion. And we have the sole administrator of justice, the state.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about war.
We do. Because the source material doesn't pretend war doesn't exist. It's not a purely pacifist text that says, never fight under any circumstances. J.R. Hamed mentions he's writing a whole other volume on the art of war, but he includes some key excerpts here. And this is where the rubber really meets the road.
This is where we have to recalibrate our vocabulary. We have to talk about the real meaning of jihad and what the source calls the bargain.
Verse 9.111. This is the one you always see on the news, the one cited in every documentary about extremism. God has purchased from the believers their portions and their goods, for theirs is the garden, the promise of heaven for fighting.
It's often presented as a simple transaction for, say, a suicide bomber. I die, I get the garden. Like a vending machine for martyrdom.
Right. Insert life, receive paradise.
But the source applies that rationalist filter again. It asks a crucial question. What does fighting in the cause of God actually mean? Does it mean fighting for land, for power, for ethnic glory?
And the source says no to all of that.
The source is very clear on the criteria. Fighting in the cause of God means fighting actual injustice. It means self-defense when you were attacked. It means freeing the enslaved. And most importantly, and this is the constraint that most people miss, it means you must never commit excesses.
That word excess, it carries so much weight here.
It's the boundary line. It's the guardrail. Look at the rules of engagement laid out in the stack, specifically from verses 2.190 to 193.
Fight in the cause of God those who wage war against you, but do not commit aggression. God does not love aggressors.
The Arabic word used for aggressors there is mutadin. It means those who cross limits, those who transgress.
So even in a war that is considered justified, let's say you're defending your home from an invader, which is a natural right. If you cross the limit, if you go too far, you lose the moral high ground.
You don't just lose the moral high ground. According to the text, you lose the love of God. The verse is explicit. God does not love aggressors. So the moment you commit a war crime, the moment you torture a prisoner or kill a child on purpose or burn down a village out of spite, you have broken the contract.
You're no longer fighting in the cause of God.
No, you're just fighting for your own rage.
That seems like an incredibly high standard to maintain in the heat of battle. I mean, adrenaline, fear, rage. How do you possibly regulate that on a battlefield?
The source argues that the regulation is actually built into the system, both in terms of time and in terms of space.
You mean the 4-month rule?
Yes.
Really?
The source mentions a universal agreement for 4 sacred months of peacetime. It interprets this as a kind of training mechanism.
A training mechanism. How so?
Well, think about it. If humanity can agree to put down all weapons for 4 months every single year, if you can force a pause in the violence, you can actually train people toward permanent peace. It's a mandatory cooling-off period hardwired into the calendar.
It forces the primal sickness into remission for a third of the year.
Exactly. And then you have the sanctuaries, the physical spaces.
The masjid of security.
Makkah. The source describes it as a haven of amnesty. Fighting is absolutely forbidden there unless you are physically attacked first within its boundaries. It's meant to be a working model for the world, a physical place that proves peace is possible.
But the part of the rules of engagement section that really struck me, the part that I think is the hardest for any human being to actually follow, is what you could call the desist clause.
Verse 2.192. And if they desist, then remember that God is forgiving.
If they desist, it's so simple but so profound. It means if the enemy stops fighting, if they drop their sword, if they raise their hand.
You must stop instantly. No exceptions.
But that feels superhuman. Imagine someone has been trying to kill you for weeks. They've killed your friends. They've threatened your family. And then in the middle of a fight, they just drop their weapon. Everything in your body, every instinct, every ounce of adrenaline is screaming at you to finish them off.
The zeal of ignorance wants to finish them off.
Right. The rage wants satisfaction. But the rule says, no, hostility must end.
And the source adds a beautiful note here about taking on the hue of God. Verse 2.138 speaks of taking your hue, your color, your character from God. And since God is defined as the source of mercy, the warrior must be capable of instant forgiveness.
It requires a braking system that's as powerful as the engine. A mob doesn't have brakes. A mob just has momentum. This text demands that you have total emotional control, even when your life is on the line.
Which leads us to the most complex variable in this entire equation, the one that keeps military ethicists up at night, the one that defines modern warfare more than any other issue.
Collateral damage.
Section 5 in our outline, the mathematics of collateral damage.
This was the part of the notes that I'd never, ever heard before. I think most people know the basic don't kill civilians rule in a general sense.
Yeah.
But the source provides a case study that is so specific, so technical, that it completely changed how I look at the entire issue.
The incident in the Valley of Makkah.
All right, so can you set the scene for us? This is from Surah 48, verses 24 and 25. What's the situation on the ground?
It's a critical moment in early Islamic history. The Muslim army, led by the Prophet, is at the edge of Makkah. They are, for all intents and purposes, victorious. They have the manpower, they have the strategic advantage. The enemy, the pagans who had persecuted them and driven them from their homes for years, are right there for the taking.
By all conventional rules of war, this is the moment you invade. This is when you take the city.
Victory is in their grasp, it is. But then something strange happens. The text says God withheld their hands. He commands them not to fight. He forces a truce, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah.
Why? That's the mystery. The verse says, he withheld their hands against you and your hands against them after he has given you victory. Why would you stop an army when it's winning?
Verse 25 gives the reason. And it is a hidden variable in the equation of war. It says, therein were believing men and believing women whom you did not know.
Whom you did not know.
Yes. There were innocent people, believers, who hadn't been able to migrate, living inside the city. They were completely mixed in with the enemy population. They didn't wear special uniforms. They didn't live in a special quarter. They looked like the enemy. They lived next to the enemy.
They were invisible to the attacking army.
Completely invisible, mixed in. And the text gives the consequence. On their account, you could have carried guilt without knowing it.
Guilt without knowing. Let's just unpack that phrase, because that is the line that stopped me dead in my tracks.
It creates a terrifyingly high standard for any military commander, ancient or modern. The logic is this. You cannot bomb a population, you cannot shell a city, you cannot invade a territory if there is a statistical probability of killing an innocent person hidden within that target.
Even if you don't know for sure that they're there.
Especially if you don't know. Ignorance is not an excuse. In fact, your ignorance is what makes you guilty. The source notes explicitly reject that common cynical excuse we hear in war. God will know his own.
You know the old phrase, kill them all, let God sort them out.
The source slams the door on that logic. It says there is absolutely no place for God will know his own as a justification for killing. The text says if you had attacked, you would have carried guilt. God stopped an entire army, withheld a guaranteed victory, just to protect the lives of a few hidden innocents.
This completely upends the logic of modern aerial bombardment. Think about it. If you drop a 1,000-pound bomb on an apartment building to get one bad guy, but you also kill 3 innocent families living upstairs, this text says you carry that guilt. You don't get a pass because it was an accident or we didn't know they were there.
The risk itself was the violation. You gambled with innocent lives. And in the calculus of mercy, that gamble is forbidden.
And this connects right back to the emotional state of the fighters. The source contrasts 2 very different mentalities here. We talked about the primal sickness, but here it's given a specific name.
Hamiyat il-Jahiliya.
The zeal of the age of ignorance.
The source describes the unbelievers, the ones who are pushing for war, as being filled with this hamiyah. What is it? It's the heat of revenge. It's tribal pride. It's that us versus them rage that makes you blind to reason. It's the feeling that just makes you want to smash everything.
And the believers. What were they given to counter this?
They were gifted sakina.
Inner contentment.
Calm, tranquility, the internal power to ward off that zealotry, the strength to stand down even when you have the upper hand.
And the source applies this directly to today. This is where it gets really pointed. It says that killing innocents at a concert or driving a truck down a boulevard or shooting up a school, these are acts of deranged cowards, yes. But more importantly, the author argues they are acts of hamiyah.
They are driven by that hot, ignorant, vengeful zeal. The terrorist is not acting in a state of sakina. He's not acting with the sovereign intelligence of the text. He's drunk on rage. He has completely succumbed to the primal sickness.
So sakina isn't just about feeling good or being zen. It's a prerequisite for justice. If you aren't calm, you cannot be just.
Exactly. Justice requires a steady hand. The zeal of ignorance makes the hand shake.
So we have the prohibition on murder, the core theorem. We have the strict rules of war, no aggression. We have the rejection of collateral damage, the Mecca precedent. But things still go wrong. People do kill. What about punishment? The source talks about the law of just recompense, qisas.
This is often translated as an eye for an eye, which, people immediately dismiss as barbaric. An eye for an eye makes a whole world blind, right?
Right, that's the Gandhi quote everyone knows.
But the source argues that qisas is actually a formula for limitation. It's not about escalating revenge, it's about stopping the bleeding.
The formula of equivalency. From verse 2.178.
The law of just recompense has been prescribed for you in dealing with murder, and then it gets incredibly specific about individual responsibility.
I loved the analogy the author used here. It's so strangely specific. He writes, a life for a life is not Harry killed Charles, so Andrew kills Edward.
Zach chuckles. It sounds like a British parlor mystery, doesn't it? But it brilliantly highlights the absurdity of tribal feuds and collective punishment.
Can you explain that?
In the pre-Quranic Arab world, and frankly, in many gang cultures today, justice is tribal. If someone from tribe A kills someone from tribe B doesn't just want the murderer, they want blood. They might go kill the murderer's brother, or his cousin, or the most prominent chief of the tribe.
Revenge by association. You hurt one of ours, so we're going to hurt one of yours. Any one of yours will do.
Kiss stops that cold, it says. No. The equation must be balanced perfectly. If a free person kills, that specific free person faces the law. If a woman kills, that specific woman faces the law. You cannot transfer the guilt. Harry must be brought to justice. You cannot touch Andrew.
It isolates the infection. Instead of a spreading blood feud where one death becomes 2, then 4, then 8, you have a surgical removal of the guilty party.
It creates a firewall. The fire starts with the perpetrator. It prevents the cycle of vengeance.
But then, and this is the mercy part of the calculus, it offers an off-ramp, a way to stop the cycle of death entirely.
The option of mercy.
The verse says, if the victim's kin pardons the guilty.
This is fascinating from a legal perspective. The law places the final power of life and death not in the hands of the judge, but in the hands of the victim's family. The court can pronounce the death sentence, but the family can step in and say, we forgive.
And if they forgive, the murderer just walks free.
Not free. He pays equitable compensation. The Arabic term is diya, often called blood money. The source calls this a concession and mercy from your Lord.
So it transforms a blood debt into a financial transaction.
Which can sound cold to some modern ears. You can't put a price on a life, but think about the social practicality of it. A family has lost a father, a breadwinner. Executing the murderer doesn't bring their father back.
Right.
But financial restitution, it can support the orphans, it can support the widow. And most crucially, it allows the society to heal and move on without shedding more blood.
It cools the temperature down. It turns Harry versus Charles into a settlement instead of another murder.
It allows for life to continue. Again, look at the calculus. How do we minimize death? How do we maximize life and well-being? Even in the face of the worst crime, murder, there is an algorithm for mercy built into the system.
But there is one final lingering question that the source has to address. And I think for many people listening, this is the elephant in the room.
Which question would that be?
Is this protection? Is this entire calculus of mercy only for Muslims? Is it an exclusive club?
Ah, the U.S. versus them question.
Exactly. Does the sanctity of life apply to everyone or just to the believers?
The source is emphatic on this point. It cites verse 3.113. They are not all alike.
They being non-Muslims.
Specifically here, the people of the scripture, so Jews and Christians. The text absolutely refuses to paint them with a broad brush. It refuses to say all of them are enemies.
Instead, it says among them are salihin, righteous people.
And look at the definition of righteous here. It has nothing to do with their theological label. It's about their behavior. It says they take a firm stand for the right cause. They advocate virtue and forbid vice. They enrich society and increase human potential.
Increase human potential. That is such a beautiful and modern-sounding phrase.
It implies that anyone, regardless of their creed, who contributes to the collective good of humanity is recognized and valued by the sovereign intelligence. Verse 3.115 says it plainly. Of the good they do, nothing will be rejected from them.
So the us versus them binary is false. The real binary isn't Muslim versus non-Muslim.
No, the real binary is those who do good versus those who create facade, those who build versus those who destroy.
The source quotes verse 3.110, which describes the believers as the best of peoples. But it defines best not as a kind of ethnic or religious privilege, but as a responsibility.
Yes, you are the best only if you enjoin the right and discourage the wrong. If you act like the aggressors, if you bomb civilians, if you act with the zeal of ignorance, you forfeit that title. You are no longer the best. You have become the very thing you claim to oppose.
You've become one of them.
Precisely. To be the best means you must embody the best values. You cannot fight terror with more terror. You cannot fight injustice with excess. The means must be as pure as the ends you claim to seek.
So let's try to summarize this whole calculus. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from the primal murder of Abel all the way to the rules of war.
We have. It's a lot to take in.
Okay, so variable 1, the sanctity of life. One life equals all humanity. No motive, no matter how grand, can justify killing an innocent.
Variable 2, the definition of war. It is only for defense, for stopping oppression, but never, ever for aggression. Do not transgress.
Variable 3, the monopoly of force. Justice belongs to the state, the central authority. The vigilante is a rebel creating facade. In this framework, they are waging war against God by breaking the established order.
Variable 4, the rejection of collateral damage. The hidden believer principle means you cannot attack if there is even a risk to innocence. You carry the guilt of the unknown. Ignorance is no excuse.
And variable 5, universal human value. Goodness is recognized wherever it comes from. The goal isn't tribal supremacy, but to be a community of safety for all of mankind.
It's a rigorous system. It's not soft. It allows for justice, for self-defense, for harsh punishment. It isn't pacifism, but it constrains violence within such tight, logical, geometric lines that the sickness of terrorism becomes mathematically impossible to justify from within the text.
It leaves the terrorist with nowhere to hide in the text itself. They can try to hide in the messy history, maybe. They can cherry-pick from the empirical friction, but they cannot hide in the divine decree.
And that brings us to the final thought the source leaves us with, the difference between Sunnatullah and Kalimatullah.
God's laws in practice versus God's laws in theory.
The source quotes verse 48.23. You will never find any change in God's laws. This suggests that the moral laws of the universe are as consistent and unbreakable as the physical laws, like gravity.
If you jump off a cliff, you fall. Gravity doesn't care if you're a good person or a bad person. The law is the law.
And if you kill innocents, you destroy a piece of humanity. If you let the zeal of ignorance take the wheel, you will crash. The law doesn't change just because you're angry or feel justified.
We look at the world today. We see the headlines. We see the explosions. We see that zeal burning across our screens every single day. And it's so easy to think that chaos is winning. It's easy to think that the primal sickness is terminal.
But the text suggests that the chaos is just the fever. The antidote, the sakina, the inner contentment, the radical restraint is always there. It's waiting to be applied.
The question then isn't whether the law exists. The question is whether we are brave enough to submit to its calculus.
And that bravery isn't just about fighting. Sometimes the bravest thing you can possibly do is to withhold your hands.
And that really is a question for you listening right now. When you see the rage, when you feel the heat of that zeal rising, maybe even in yourself when you're on social media or in a political argument, do you feed that fire? Do you become another part of the friction?
Or do you reach for the cool water of restraint? Which force is driving the headlines? And more importantly, which force is driving you?
This has been The Deep Dive. Dive deeper.